The Phoenix Suns have clinched a playoff berth for the first time since 2010. That's a decade. I was in high school then. You were still in the league
Chill,
when that happened.
bro.
I'm just saying, you were. I'm not chilling shit. You were still in the league. That's a long time ago. Yeah. They beat the Clippers, albeit without Kawhi Leonard, but they are in the postseason. The Phoenix Suns are in the postseason. Honestly, a legitimate title contender. Are the Phoenix Suns for real, Raja Bell?
Yeah,
are
they're for real. No, they're for real. Now and look, this isn't just with my heartstrings talking right now. And I think we both came on when we were doing our preseason kind of rankings and sprites. We both had Phoenix being a good team. It kind of, they weren't like shot out of a rocket or a cannon to start the season. It's kind of gradually built up. And a lot of people deserve their flowers out there. I'm going to give Robert Sarver some love. Like, I don't do this often, right? James Jones was a great hire. Monty, great hire for that team. Both of them are doing phenomenal jobs. James swinging the deal to get Chris Paul. We said at the time that we thought it was going to really tie some things together out there. You could start to see the roadmap to where you want to go as a franchise. And they're following the map. Like, they're on their way, and they're for real. I talk about these two stats, like with the NBA offensive and defensive efficiency. Man, you got to be top 10 for me to really consider you in the thick of things. Now, there are outliers, like Brooklyn's offense is so great that we'll see if it can overcome their lack of defensive prowess. The Phoenix Suns, the Utah Jazz, the Milwaukee Bucks, and I don't think that there's another team that checks both of those boxes. So when you ask me if they're for real, the answer is unequivocally yes, they are for real.
Yeah, no, I believe so as well. And I think that when you to your point about them, excuse me, your point about them maybe like not even a fast start, just a solid start to the season. When you talk about that makes perfect sense. They're a new team in COVID, a different type of training camp, a different things to do. But they had the pieces, man. I love what they have on their team. It's Chris Paul helping out a lot of dudes, but that means Devin Booker's getting off. Aiden's playing well, has to get his defense back up. He has to get his defense up in general. Mikal Bridges, love him. I really love this team in general. And so that's something that I was expecting, though. I was expecting more of maybe a 4 or 5 seed, maybe in the next year they maybe take the jump. Why are they taking the jump in the way that they're taking it right now, as opposed to the gradual thing of that's something that we talked about in the start of the season?
That's a really good question. Again, I always default to like defensive chops. And whether that can be the identity of your team. Because I know that Devin Booker is one of the best offensive talents in the league. I know what Chris Paul does in terms of orchestrating offense and allowing people who may not be phenomenal one-on-one players to eat and be better offensively because of what he does in setting the table. I played with great guards. I played with Steve Nash. Steve Nash allowed me to average 15 points a game. I wasn't a 15-point-a-game scorer, but Steve knew how to get me the ball where I liked it. And so now I'm probably playing out of my or above my level offensively. I know that's going to happen. What I don't know is going to happen is whether Monty can get to this relatively young team and get them to really buy into the defensive end. Now, Chris Paul certainly helps that. They have some great defensive pieces on that team. But I think that's why, they are sitting there at the second. They've paired a really, really good offense and a good group of young offensive talent with some real defensive prowess. And I think what ties that all together is the one piece of Chris Paul. I'm not saying that he is the best player on that team. I'm not saying that everyone on that team doesn't deserve credit. Mikal Bridges is also a great defensive piece. But I think his veteran leadership and that steady hand in the locker room, someone who is not afraid to hold people accountable, someone who's been in those wars and knows how to handle teammates, I don't think that you could put a price tag on that. I don't know that you can.
I think the Chris Paul element obviously is the biggest one there, because I think there's something to be said when you do have a young team, but you have an older guy who's been through the wars, who's been through the big games before, to help you in the postseason. Because it doesn't matter, how good you are in the regular season. When you're a young team, it's totally different ball game when you see the postseason for the first time. And to have a calming influence like Chris Paul is huge for them. And I think that I think the Knicks game recently was a big example of that, where he hits a huge shot down the stretch to help win that game. But just to have that calming presence down the stretch really, really helps, right, Raja? Don't you think that? Because when a guy oh man, when there's a game when Devin Booker is, man, I don't know, like down the stretch. Not to say he's going to get queasy down the stretch, but the postseason is a different thing. When this team gets queasy, throw it to Chris Paul. We'll see what we can do with it. How big is that when you do get into the postseason?
Let me answer it. It's absolutely huge. And let me take a step back and just address some of the moves that were made as I continue to give James his flowers, right? We talked about Jay Crowder when they signed Jay Crowder.
What's his nickname?
Joops. Joops, baby. Jay Hoops, Joops. So when Joops went out and signed Jay Crowder, what did we say? Man, that's a great piece. That's a guy been in the trenches, can trust him defensively in those moments. Hard-nosed. His DNA is what you want in playoff type of teams. Torrey Craig, right? Another guy, put it in the bucket. But man, he's flying around making plays defensively on the glass. You're talking about pieces that they sought for like the toughness and the ability to get out there, defend multiple positions and be tough, right? So now let me get to Chris Paul. Chris Paul's not going to carry you every game offensively, right? I don't even know that his legs have that in him anymore. But Chris Paul, given the opportunity, if someone else isn't cooking and their number one, Devin Booker, isn't playing, is fully capable of taking over for a quarter of basketball. And the luxury of having a dude who can sit back, facilitate, really orchestrate your offense and make sure that everyone is cooking is great. But then to have him have the ability, if all of that's not working in the fourth quarter, to say, all right, I got you, put you guys hop on my back, I'm going to carry us home. That's a luxury that again, there's not a price tag you can put on that, man. That is really special stuff to be able to flip that switch. Only the great ones can do that. Real talk. Only the great ones can sit back, parlay, let everybody else eat, do their thing. And then when you need them to, boom, I got you guys. I'll carry you the last 7 minutes offensively. Give me the ball.
I mean, I'd imagine that takes a bit of ego, but also humility, right? The ego to be able to be like, no, I got this. I'm one of the best at this in the league historically ever, right? But then to have the humility to be like, boom, you go ahead, you got this, don't trip, it's all good, I got you, and facilitate the offense. And then when you guys need me, I'm here, And I do think that that's a bit of a good trait to have in general, but also as an older player, a great trait to have. And I think that you saw that last year with Chris in Oklahoma City, where, a guy that, I think he didn't average 20 points by any means, but Shea, this is how I'm going to develop you, little bro. Like, I'm going to give you the ball. This is how you cook. I remember watching Chris Paul early last season, going to a game in Oklahoma City and watching him play. And it was one of those things, right, where his presence on the floor was good enough at that point because he is telling guys what to do. He is pulling guys to the side. And, hey, if you need a big shot, it's cool. I'll drop off like 6 straight points, and then I'll finish with 16 points in the game. I'm not the leading scorer, but I definitely made my mark. And you knew that you knew my value to the team. So I'm really excited to see what Chris Paul does that. He don't got to average 25 a game. That was never his game anyway, but he doesn't have to do that. And I'm excited to see what he can do with that. What's up, Roger?
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt, but here's what he needs to do. He needs to stay healthy, because that's kind of been what's derailed some of the seasons where he's had opportunities to maybe get over the hump, a la the Houston, a few years ago. Guys stay healthy and he'll have a shot. I do think, when you talk about Chris Paul, you have to give credit to his teammates as well, because I know this about Chris Paul. He is not an easy dude in terms of, I'm going to let you get away with this and I'm not going to say shit. And that can be tough in today's world, not just the NBA. Like, everything is different. Like, our coaches don't speak to us the same way that your coach spoke to you, right? Like, they're not allowed to speak the same way Jerry Sloan may have spoken to us. It's a different world. But Chris Paul is cut from that cloth. He will MF you until you get right and hold you accountable. And not everyone can deal with an on-court leader like that. So I want to just give some credit to the cats that are buying into Chris Paul, like his teammates, that are saying, hey, man, we recognize the greatness and what you've done wherever you've been. We'll accept that leadership. Like, I'll take that.
How much of that is, well, one, age, but also that, he's played with a guy like Monty Williams before, and Monty Williams isn't going to undermine Chris Paul's leadership, right? Where Chris Paul says something, it's probably, that's what it is, man. Like, that's your point guard. That's what it is. And I'd imagine also Chris Paul, his influence is not going to affect Devin Booker, because Devin Booker is just a real one, bro. Devin Booker is going to, from all accounts, is going to take that and be like, I bet, I got you. Don't trip. So when you have your two best players doing that, I think, doesn't everyone else fall in line? When you have your two best players having that attitude and mindset, and you have Monty Williams, who's been with both of those guys before, does that help did everyone else fall in line?
Yeah, I think it worked. I think any coach who has a player like Chris Paul and tries to undermine their ability to lead, you're shooting yourself in the foot ultimately, because that's what he's there for. He's there to lead. He's there for his experience, not just his talent. So if you were to, and there are some coaches that will, it's my way. It's not going to be Chris's way. It's my way. The best coaches, it's our way. We figure this out. So some days it might be my way. Some days it might be Chris's way. But together, we win. So yes, it does take money, and that helps. And I think we're taking for granted, though, that everyone's built like Devin Booker. They're not. Every great offensive player you see in this league, or great player, isn't built like that. They're not built to have somebody come in and say, hey, young fella, listen to me. I've been there. I can help you. And you've seen it play out time and time again, where dudes get run out of a town, and afterwards they're talking about those dudes. You've seen it. So we're taking for granted that every really good young player is built of the same stuff that Devin Booker is, and they're not. So I agree with you 100%. All that familiarity works and helps it tie together. But the receptiveness of a Devin Booker, the ability for Monty to understand what they're trying to do there and let Chris spread his wings in that leadership role is critical.